subscribe to Storylab. Now let's begin this one. The August heat in Kandahar province felt like walking through an oven, but Clay Bentley barely noticed anymore. After 7 months of deployment, the 118-degree afternoons have become just another fact of life, like the weight of his rifle or the taste of sand that never quite left his mouth. What he couldn't get used to, what gnawed at him during every quiet moment, was the distance from his son. Clay sat in the cramped communications tent, his phone pressed to his ear, listening to 8-year-old Connor's excited chatter about baseball tryouts. The kid had inherited Clay's athletic build and competitive fire, along with his mother's quick mind and blue eyes. "Dad, Coach Martinez said I've got the best arm in my age group. He wants me to pitch." Connor's voice crackled through the spotty connection. "That's my boy," Clay said, his chest tightening with pride and longing. "Remember what I taught you about your follow-through?" I know. Step into it, rotate the hips, snap the wrist." Connor paused. "When are you coming home?" "For more months, buddy. February. I'll be there for your birthday, I promise." "Mom says you might not make it." Connor's voice dropped. "She says a lot of things lately." Clay's jaw clenched. Rebecca had been different in their last few video calls, distracted, distant, avoiding his questions about how she was handling things. They'd met 10 years ago when Clay was fresh out of ranger school, and she was finishing her nursing degree. She'd known what she was signing up for, or so she'd claimed. The deployments, the uncertainty, the long stretches of single parenting. For the first few years, she'd handled it with grace. But this deployment felt different. "Your mom's probably just stressed, Connor. Taking care of everything by herself isn't easy." "She's not by herself anymore," Connor said quietly. "Devin's here a lot." Clay felt ice water pour down his spine. "Devin, Mom's friend. He moved some of his stuff into the garage last month." He's not very nice, Dad." Before Clay could respond, he heard Rebecca's voice in the background, sharp and commanding. Connor's end went muffled. Then Rebecca came on the line. "Clay, Connor needs to go. It's dinner time." "Rebecca, who's Devin?" "A friend who's been helping with things around the house. The sink broke, the lawn needed. Connor said he moved stuff in. Some tools." "Clay, I can't do this right now." Her voice had that edge he'd heard more and more lately. Defensive, almost hostile. "You're 7,000 miles away. I'm here dealing with reality." The line went dead. Clay sat motionless, staring at his phone. Around him, other soldiers were heading to chow, their laughter and banter a distant buzz. He'd learned to trust his instincts in combat. That prickle at the back of his neck that said something was wrong had saved his life more than once. He felt it now. He pulled up Rebecca's social media, something he rarely did. Her latest photos showed her at a bar he didn't recognize, wearing a dress he'd never seen. In the background of one shot, he could make out a man's arm around her shoulder. The comments were disabled. "Bentley, you coming or what?" Sergeant Major Harvey Russell stood in the tent entrance, his weathered face creased with concern. Russell was old-school Army, a career soldier who'd been deployed more times than he'd been home. He'd taken Clay under his wing early, recognizing something in the younger man, dedication, competence, and an unshakable moral code. "Yes, Sarge. Just finished a call with my boy." Russell studied him with the sharp awareness of a man who'd led soldiers for 25 years. "Everything good at home?" Clay hesitated. "In the military, you didn't show weakness. You didn't burden others with personal problems." But Russell had always been different, a mentor more than a commanding officer. "Not sure, honestly." Russell pulled up a chair. "Talk to me." Clay explained about Devin, about Rebecca's evasiveness, about the shift in Connor's voice. Russell listened without interrupting, his expression darkening. "How long you been feeling this way?" "Past month, maybe 6 weeks. Could be nothing. Could be I'm just paranoid from being over here too long." "Your gut usually wrong?" "No." Russell nodded slowly. "Then trust it. Keep your head in the game here, but keep your eyes on the home front. You got people you can reach out to back there." Clay thought about it. His parents had passed years ago. His father from a heart attack, his mother from cancer 2 years later. Rebecca's family had never approved of him, the soldier who'd taken their daughter away from her hometown and her promising nursing career. Their friends were mostly Rebecca's friends, people he'd met, but never really connected with. "Not really," he admitted. "Then we'll figure something out." But Bentley, Russell's eyes locked onto his. Don't let this eat you up. I've seen good soldiers lose focus over home situations, and people die when that happens. You keep your head here, you handle what you can handle, and you trust that things will shake out. Understood. Yes, Sergeant Major. But 3 weeks later, things didn't shake out. They exploded. Clay was pulling security duty on a supply convoy when his phone buzzed with a message notification. The convoy was stopped at a checkpoint, and he had a brief moment to check it. The message was from Connor's school, an automated alert about an incident requiring parental contact. His blood pressure spiked. He immediately tried calling Rebecca straight to voicemail. He tried the school, closed for the day. He tried Rebecca again, then sent her a text. What happened with Connor? Call me now. 3 hours later, when they were back at base, she finally responded. Not with a call, but with a text. Connor got in a fight. He's fine. Suspended for 3 days. I'll handle it. Clay stared at his phone. Connor had never been in a fight in his life. The kid was competitive in sports, but had always been mild-mannered, the type to walk away from confrontation. Something was seriously wrong. He spent the next hour trying to reach someone, anyone, who could tell him what had happened. Finally, he got through to Austin Greenwood, a buddy from his National Guard unit who lived 2 towns over. Austin, I need a favor. Big one. Name it, brother. Clay explained the situation. Austin listened, then said, I'll drive over tomorrow, check on Connor. Casual-like, say I was in the area. I'll report back. The next 36 hours were the longest of Clay's deployment. He ran drills, cleaned weapons, pulled guard shifts, all while his mind spun through increasingly dark scenarios. When Austin finally called, Clay was in the middle of a briefing. He stepped outside to take it, his heart hammering. Clay! Austin's voice was tight. I don't know how to tell you this. Just say it. I stopped by your place. Rebecca wasn't home, but I saw Connor outside with this guy. I'm guessing that's Devin. They were in the driveway. This guy was in Connor's face, yelling at him about something. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard him call Connor a whiny little brat and tell him to man up. Clay's vision narrowed. Did he touch him? Not while I was there. But Clay. Connor looked scared. Really scared. When he saw me, he ran over like I was a lifeline. He didn't want to talk about the fight at school, but he kept looking back at that guy like what? Like he was afraid of what would happen when I left. Clay's hand tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. Where was Rebecca? Connor said she was at work. Wouldn't be back until 7. This Devin guy is basically playing house, man. And he's not playing nice. That night, Clay sat in his bunk, unable to sleep. His mind kept circling back to Connor's face as he'd last seen it on video call. Still round with childhood, those blue eyes that looked so much like Rebecca's. The gap-toothed smile that was slowly being replaced by permanent teeth. Connor should be worried about homework and baseball and whether the girl he liked would notice him. He shouldn't be afraid in his own home. Clay had spent 7 months protecting strangers in a country halfway around the world. And while he was gone, his own son needed protecting. Around 0300 hours, his phone buzzed. The message loaded slowly on the spotty connection, and when it finally opened, Clay's world tilted. It was a video, 47 seconds long. The footage was shaky, clearly shot through a doorway or from around a corner. Connor stood in what looked like their garage, his small frame rigid with fear. Devin Mercer, and Clay could now put a face to the name, stood over him, easily twice Connor's size. The man was in his mid-30s, heavily built, with a shaved head and tattoos crawling up his neck. I told you to put the trash out 2 hours ago. Devin's voice was cold, controlled in a way that was somehow worse than shouting. I'm sorry, I was doing homework, I forgot. I don't care about your excuses. Devin stepped closer. Your mother is working her ass off, and you can't do one simple thing? I'll do it now. Too late. Devin's hand shot out, fingers tangling in Connor's hair. He yanked the boy's head back, and Connor cried out. You know what your problem is? You're weak. Soft. Your soldier daddy isn't here to save you, so you need to learn to handle your own shit. He shoved Connor backward. The boy stumbled, catching himself against a workbench. Eyes wide and wet with tears he was clearly trying not to shed. The video ended. Below it, a message from an unknown number. Thought you should see what your kid deals with while you play hero. Do something about it. or I will. A concerned friend. Clay watched the video 3 more times, each viewing making his hands shake harder. The rage that filled him was white-hot and crystalline, burning away everything else. In combat, he'd learned to channel anger, to use it as fuel while keeping his mind clear. But this was different. This was his child, his son, being brutalized by some coward who felt big terrorizing a 3rd grader. He stood up, pulled on his uniform, and headed to Russell's quarters. Protocol be damned. Some things couldn't wait for morning formation. Russell answered his door in PT shorts and an army t-shirt, instantly alert despite the hour. "Bentley, I need to show you something, Sergeant Major." They sat in Russell's small office, and Clay handed over his phone without a word. Russell watched the video once, his jaw tightening with each passing second. Then he watched it again. When he looked up, his eyes were hard as flint. Who sent this? Don't know. Anonymous number. And the guy? Devin Mercer. My wife's boyfriend, I guess. He's been living in my house, around my son. Clay's voice was eerily calm, but his hands were still shaking. "Sarge, I need emergency leave. I need to get home. Now." Russell leaned back in his chair, silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "How many guys in the platoon have kids?" The question caught Clay off guard. Most of them. Probably 30, 32. How many of them would want to see something like this happen to any child, let alone the child of one of their own? Clay's eyes narrowed. "What are you thinking?" Russell's face was stone. "I'm thinking that every man in this platoon volunteered to deploy, knowing they'd miss birthdays and holidays and baseball games. They did it because they believe in protecting people who can't protect themselves. And I'm thinking that if they knew one of our own had a child in danger, they'd want to do something about it." "Sarge, you can't." "Can't what?" "Process emergency leave paperwork for a soldier whose child is being abused?" "That's my job, Bentley. The fact that I might mention to certain people why you're going home, well..." Russell's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Information flows in a unit. Can't control that. Clay felt something shift in his chest. Relief mixed with a fierce, protective pride in the men he served with. "When can I leave?" "Paperwork will be ready by 0600. You'll be wheels up by noon." Russell stood, then put a hand on Clay's shoulder. "But Bentley, you do this smart, not stupid. That boy needs his father, not his father in prison." "Understood, understood." But as Clay headed back to his bunk, his mind was already working through scenarios, possibilities, plans. Devin Mercer had made a catastrophic mistake. He'd hurt Clay's son, and now Clay was coming home. And he wouldn't be coming alone. The C-130 touchdown at Fort Bragg just after dawn 2 days later. Clay had spent the flight in a strange state of heightened calm, his mind organizing everything into operational objectives. Secure Connor, document evidence, neutralize the threat, ensure permanent protection. He'd learned long ago that emotion was fuel, but planning was victory. He'd also spent the flight fielding encrypted messages from the platoon. What Russell had started had taken on a life of its own. Lucas Walker, a sniper with 2 daughters. "Got your 6, brother. Just say when." Rex Moore, demolitions expert with a son Connor's age. "That video made me sick. I'm in for whatever you need." Austin Greenwood, who'd first checked on Connor, already started a file. "Got photos, dates, witnesses. Building your case." One by one, they'd reached out. By the time Clay landed, he had a network of 32 combat veterans. Men who'd fought in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, all unified around a single mission: protect Connor Bentley. Harvey Russell had stayed behind to handle things with command, but his final message had been clear. "You've got 3 weeks before we need you back. Make them count." And Bentley? "Make sure that son of a bitch never forgets what happens when you mess with a soldier's family." Clay rented a car at the airport and drove the 3 hours to his hometown of Millbrook Falls, a manufacturing town of 40,000 people nestled in the Appalachian foothills. He'd grown up here, met Rebecca here, bought their house here. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like entering hostile territory. He didn't go straight to the house. First, he met Austin at a diner on the edge of town. Austin slid a folder across the table. "Everything I could get. Photos of Devin's car at your place, at all hours." Connor's suspension paperwork. He got in that fight because 3 kids were mocking him about having a new daddy. School counselor's notes about behavioral changes. And he pulled out another document. Devin Mercer's record. 2 priors for assault, 1 for destruction of property. Charges dropped both times because witnesses recanted. Clay studied the mugshot. Devin stared at the camera with dead eyes, the kind of look Clay had seen on insurgents, people who'd crossed a line and couldn't come back. He's a bully, Austin said. Local tough guy. Works as a bouncer at a bar downtown. Does some enforcer work for a guy who runs a chop shop operation. Word is he likes to hurt people. And your wife? Say it. She met him at the hospital. He came in after a bar fight. She was his nurse. Apparently, they hit it off. She started seeing him about 4 months ago. Filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. You should have been served, but she had the papers sent to your deployment address, knowing they wouldn't reach you. Clay absorbed this with the same calm he'd bring to a mission briefing. Facts, data, intel, emotion could come later. Where is he now? Works nights, usually sleeps until noon. He's at your house right now. Rebecca's at the hospital. She picked up extra shifts. Connor's at school. Austin paused. What's your play? First, I'm getting my son. Then I'm going to pay Mr. Mercer a visit. Then, Clay's eyes were cold. Then we're going to teach him what happens when you hurt a child. Austin raised an eyebrow. Clay's phone buzzed with a message from Rex Moore. Just landed. Where do you need me? Then Lucas Walker. 2 hours out. Got the surveillance equipment. Then Johnny Wu. Rented a van. Ready when you are. Austin read the look on Clay's face and shook his head with something like awe. You actually got the whole platoon to come home. Not the whole platoon, Clay said. But enough. He stood up, leaving cash for the coffee, and headed for his car. He had a son to collect, and then he had work to do. Devin Mercer had declared war on Clay's family. He just didn't know it yet. But he was about to learn that when you hurt a soldier's child, you don't just face that soldier. You face his entire unit. And 32 combat veterans, united in purpose and fury, were a force that no small-town tough guy could possibly be prepared to handle. The war was coming home, and Clay Bentley intended to win it. Clay stood across the street from Millbrook Falls Elementary, watching parents stream in for pickup. The school's brick facade looked exactly as he remembered, down to the mural of painted handprints that decorated the entrance. Connor had added his own handprint to that mural in kindergarten, his tiny palm print in blue paint next to his carefully printed name. It felt like a lifetime ago. The bell rang at 2:45. Children poured out in a chaos of backpacks and laughter, scattering toward waiting cars and buses. Clay scanned each face, his heart rate climbing. Then he saw him. Connor walked alone, head down, backpack hanging off one shoulder. The boy who'd once bounded out of school with endless energy now moved like he was trying to be invisible. Clay felt his chest constrict. He crossed the street and called out, "Hey, slugger." Connor's head snapped up. For a frozen second, the boy just stared. Then his face crumpled, and he ran. Clay caught him as Connor crashed into his arms, the impact nearly knocking him back. His son was crying. Not the hiccuping tears of a skinned knee, but deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere dark and frightened. Dad, you're here. You're really here. I'm here, buddy. I'm here." Clay held him tight, one hand cradling the back of Connor's head, feeling how much the boy had grown in 7 months. "I've got you. You can't take me back there," Connor whispered against Clay's chest. "Please don't make me go back." "Back where?" "Home. With him. Dad. I try to be good. I try to do everything right, but he's always angry, and Mom won't listen, and I'm so tired of being scared." "Stop." Clay pulled back enough to look Connor in the eyes. "Listen to me. You're never going back to that house with that man. You understand? Never. But Mom, I'll handle your mother. Right now, you're coming with me." A minivan pulled up beside them, and Austin Greenwood rolled down a window. In the passenger seat, Rex Moore offered a gentle smile. "Hey, Connor. Remember me?" Connor wiped his eyes and nodded. Rex had attended one of Connor's birthday parties 2 years ago, showing up in uniform and letting all the kids hold his Purple Heart. "We're your dad's backup," Rex said. "We've got a cool place set up where you can hang out, play some video games, maybe order pizza." "Sound good." Connor looked between them and his father, confusion and hope warring on his face. What's happening? Clay knelt to Connor's level. The truth is, I saw what that man did to you. I know you've been scared and hurting, and I'm here to fix it. But I need you to trust me and go with these guys for a few hours while I take care of things. Can you do that? Connor's small hand gripped Clay's sleeve. You're not leaving again? Not without you. I promise. Clay pulled his son close one more time. You're the bravest kid I know, Connor. Just a little while longer, and this is all over. Deal. Deal. Clay watched the minivan drive away, carrying his son to a safe house Austin had arranged, a friend's hunting cabin 30 minutes outside town. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Lucas? He's secure. Phase 2 is go. The sun was starting its descent when Clay pulled up to his house. The two-story colonial looked exactly as he'd left it. White siding, black shutters, the oak tree in the front yard that he'd climbed as a boy when this had been his parents' home. He'd inherited it when they died, brought Rebecca here as a bride, carried her over the threshold with dreams of building a life. Now those dreams were ash, and a stranger's truck sat in his driveway. Clay sat in his car for a long moment, controlling his breathing, focusing his mind. This wasn't combat. This was something more delicate, more dangerous. He couldn't just kick in the door and open fire. He had to be smart. His phone buzzed. A message from Lucas Walker. Eyes on. I count one hostile inside. Ground floor. Appears to be watching TV. No other movement. Clay looked up at the house across the street. Lucas was positioned in an empty vacation rental, running surveillance with equipment he'd brought from base. 2 blocks over, Rex Moore and Johnny Wu were standing by in a van, ready to move if needed. Austin was with Connor at the cabin. They'd planned this like a military operation because that's what it was. And every military operation needed intelligence. Clay opened his email and pulled up the video again. Watched his son being terrorized. Let the rage flow through him and then past him, leaving only cold clarity. Then he got out of the car and walked up to his own front door. He could hear the television through the door, some action movie playing at high volume. Clay tried his key. The lock turned. They hadn't even bothered to change it. The living room was a disaster. Pizza boxes stacked on his coffee table. Beer bottles lined up on the mantel. The smell of cigarette smoke hung in the air, even though Clay had never allowed smoking in the house. The couch where he'd read Connor bedtime stories was stained with God knew what. Devin Mercer sprawled across that couch in boxers and a tank top, feet up, one hand holding a beer. He didn't even look up when the door opened. Rebek, I told you I wanted. He turned and saw Clay. For a satisfying second, genuine fear flashed across Devin's face. He scrambled up, trying to look tough as he pulled himself together. Who the fuck are you? I'm Clay Bentley. This is my house. Clay's voice was quiet, level. You're in my home, sleeping in my bed, and putting your hands on my son. Devin's expression shifted from surprise to calculation to sneering confidence. He stood up, and Clay noted the size difference. Devin had 4 inches and probably 40 pounds on him. In a different life, that might have been intimidating. You're home. Devin laughed. Brother, you ain't been home in months. Rebecca needed a real man around, someone who could actually be here. And as for your kid, he stepped closer. Little brat needed discipline. All he does is whine about you. When's Dad coming home? Dad wouldn't do it that way. Kid needed to learn the world don't revolve around him. Clay, let him talk. Every word was being recorded by the device in his pocket, courtesy of Lucas's equipment. Evidence, testimony, ammunition. So you thought grabbing him by the hair was discipline? Devin's eyes narrowed. Someone sent you that video? Who was? Then understanding dawned, and he smiled. It was an ugly expression. You came all the way home because of one little video? Man, you're as soft as your kid. That little video showed you assaulting a child. Assault. Devin barked a laugh. I barely touched him. Kid just weak. Like his daddy, apparently. Coming into my house, acting all tough. Your house. Clay's voice dropped even lower. This is my house. My name is on the deed. My money paid for it. You're a squatter. Devin closed the distance between them, getting in Clay's face. Listen, soldier boy. I don't give a shit what's on some piece of paper. Rebecca is mine now. This house is mine. And that kid? He better learn to show respect. Or next time it won't just be his hair I grab. There it was. The threat. The line crossed. Clay moved. It wasn't a brawl or a bar fight. It was precision violence learned through years of training. Clay's elbow snapped up, catching Devin square in the nose. Cartilage crunched. Blood sprayed. Devin staggered back, hands flying to his face, and Clay swept his legs out from under him. Devin hit the floor hard. Before he could recover, Clay had him pinned, knee on his chest, forearm across his throat. "Here's what's going to happen," Clay said, his voice still eerily calm despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. "You're going to leave. Not tomorrow. Not in an hour. Right now. You're going to pack whatever shit belongs to you, get in your truck, and disappear from my family's life." Devin struggled, but Clay pressed down harder, cutting off air just enough to make breathing difficult. "If you ever come near my son again, if you ever even think his name, I will find you. And next time, it won't be just me. It'll be my entire unit. 32 combat veterans who are very interested in teaching you what happens to men who hurt children. Are we clear?" Devin's eyes were wide, blood streaming from his broken nose. He tried to speak, but Clay's forearm made it impossible. "Not if you understand." Devin nodded frantically. Clay held him there for another 5 seconds, long enough to make sure the message was received, then released him and stood up. Devin rolled to his side, gasping and coughing. You can't. I already did. Now get up and get out." But Devin's expression was shifting from fear to calculation. Through his broken nose, he managed a bloody smile. "You just assaulted me in front of witnesses. I'm calling the cops." "Go ahead." Clay gestured to his phone. "While you're at it, I'll show them the video of you dragging my 8-year-old son by his hair. I'll show them the documentation of his school suspension caused by bullying about you. I'll show them the statements from neighbors about your car being here at all hours. And then we'll see who goes to jail." Devin's smile faltered. He pulled himself up, still clutching his nose. "Rebecca will back me up. She'll tell them you're lying." "Will she?" "Because I'm pretty sure Rebecca doesn't want the whole town knowing she let her boyfriend abuse her son. Bad luck for a nurse. Might even lose her job." It was a bluff. Clay had no idea what Rebecca would do. But he bet Devin didn't either. The front door opened. Rebecca stood there in her scrubs, her eyes going wide as she took in the scene. Devin bleeding on the floor, Clay standing over him, the destroyed living room around them. "Clay, what are you? We need to talk," Clay said. Privately. Devin was just leaving. Rebecca looked between them, and something flickered in her expression. Guilt, fear, maybe even relief. "Devin, go clean yourself up. Wait outside." "Babe." "Outside. Now." Devin shot Clay a murderous look, but limped toward the bathroom, grabbing a handful of paper towels before heading out the front door. Rebecca closed the door behind him and turned to face her husband. Up close, Clay could see the changes 7 months had wrought. She lost weight. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her scrubs had coffee stains. "You're supposed to be in Afghanistan," she said. "I got emergency leave." Clay pulled out his phone and held up the video. "Because someone sent me this." Rebecca watched it, and with each passing second, her face went paler. When it ended, she couldn't meet his eyes. It's not as bad as it looks. He dragged our son by his hair and told him I wasn't here to save him." "What part of that isn't as bad as it looks?" Connor exaggerates. "He's been difficult lately, testing boundaries. He's 8 years old and terrified." Clay's control slipped for the first time, his voice rising. "He ran to me outside school today, crying and begging me not to bring him back here." "That's not exaggeration, Rebecca. That's fear." She flinched. "I didn't know it was that bad. Because you weren't looking, or you didn't want to see." Clay stepped closer. "What happened to you? The woman I married would never have let someone treat our son like that." Tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. "The woman you married got tired of being alone, of putting Connor to bed by herself every night and lying when he asked when his daddy was coming home, of missing you so much it physically hurt, of being scared every time the news showed another attack in Afghanistan. So you decided to replace me? I decided to stop waiting." She wiped her eyes angrily. 7 years of deployments, Clay. 7 years of you choosing the army over us. I needed someone who would actually be here. I was serving our country. providing for our family. That was always the plan. Your plan? Not mine. Not anymore. She straightened, some of her nurse's composure returning. I filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. The papers are in the mail. I'm getting full custody. Connor needs stability, and you can't provide that from a war zone. Clay felt something cold settle in his chest. You think any judge is going to give you full custody after that video? What video? I don't see any video. And if one showed up mysteriously after you came home and assaulted Devin, well, she met his eyes. It would look like you fabricated evidence out of jealousy. My lawyer already said, your lawyer doesn't know everything. Clay's voice was steel now. I've been documenting everything since I landed. Photos, witnesses, statements. Your boyfriend has 2 priors for assault. Connor's school counselor has notes about his behavioral changes and their cause. Neighbors have seen Devin's car here at all hours. You want to fight me for custody? Go ahead, but you'll lose. Rebecca's facade cracked. You can't take him from me. He's my son. He's our son, and he's being hurt. That ends today. Clay pulled out papers from his jacket. Documents Austin had helped him draw up with a lawyer that morning. Emergency custody hearing is tomorrow at 10 a.m. You can show up and explain to a judge why you let your boyfriend abuse our child, or you can sign these papers agreeing to temporary custody until I'm done with deployment. Your choice. She stared at the papers like they were a snake. And if I fight you, then I bring all the evidence. The video, the witnesses, everything. Your nursing license gets reviewed. Devin's priors come out. Child Protective Services gets involved. Is that what you want? I want you to have been here, she shouted, her composure finally shattering completely. I want you to have put us first for once in our marriage. She stopped, shoulders shaking. I never wanted any of this. Clay felt a surge of pity mixed with his anger. The woman standing before him was broken, making terrible choices out of loneliness and desperation. But that didn't excuse what she'd allowed to happen. Connor doesn't deserve to pay for our mistakes, he said quietly. Sign the papers, Rebecca. Let me protect him. When my deployment is done, we'll figure out a real custody arrangement. But right now, he needs to be safe. She took the papers with trembling hands and read through them. You're taking him out of state? To my uncle's place in Virginia until my deployment ends. He'll finish the school year there, and I'll arrange for him to come back for visits. My baby. Fresh tears streamed down her face. He's my baby, Clay. Then do what's best for him, not what's easiest for you. She looked at him for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted. Recognition, maybe, of the man she'd married before deployments and resentment had eroded their marriage. The soldier who always put mission first, even when the mission hurt. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. I just stopped being able to live with you being gone. I know, and he did. That was the tragedy of it. They'd loved each other, but love hadn't been enough against the grinding reality of military life. But this isn't about us anymore. It's about Connor. Rebecca wiped her eyes and signed the papers. Her hand shook, but her signature was clear. Can I say goodbye? Tomorrow. Come to my uncle's place. Bring his favorite things. We'll make the transition as easy as possible. Clay took the papers and headed for the door, then paused. And Rebecca? Get Devin out of your life. Not just for Connor, for you. That man is dangerous. He's not that bad when... Yes, he is. You just convinced yourself otherwise because you were lonely. But men who hurt children don't change. They get worse. He opened the door. I really hope you figure that out before it's too late. Devin was leaning against his truck, phone pressed to his ear. He hung up quickly when he saw Clay, his swollen nose packed with tissue. This isn't over, he snarled. Yeah, it is. Clay walked past him toward his rental car. If you're smart, you'll leave town. If you're not. He glanced back. My friends are watching. They know your face now. They know your truck. And they're much less patient than I am. That a threat? It's a promise. Clay got in his car and started the engine. Through the windshield, he saw Lucas Walker in the window across the street, camera with a telephoto lens clearly visible. He saw Rex Moore's van turn onto the street, driving slow. He saw Johnny Woo's car parked at the corner, engine running. Devin saw them too. His bravado crumbled as he realized he was surrounded by men who'd seen real combat, who knew how to track and hunt and strike. Men who'd come home specifically to deal with him. Clay's phone buzzed. A message from Harvey Russell, still back in Afghanistan. Heard it went smooth. Good. Now finish it. Clay put the car in drive and headed for the cabin where his son waited. Phase 2 was complete. But Russell was right. This wasn't finished. Not until Devin Mercer learned the lesson permanently. The hunting cabin sat on 20 acres of pine forest, the kind of place where you could see headlights coming from a mile away. Clay pulled up to find Austin and Rex on the porch, Connor visible through the window inside playing video games. "How'd it go?" Austin asked. "Got the custody papers signed. Devin's nose is broken. Rebecca's scared." Clay climbed the porch steps. But Mercer's the type who doesn't learn. He'll try something. "Good," Rex said with a cold smile. "We're ready." Inside, Connor looked up from his game and ran to Clay. "Dad, Mr. Rex, let me play his copy of Call of Duty. He said you're way better than anyone on the leaderboards." "That's because I do it for Real, buddy." Clay ruffled his son's hair, marveling at how much lighter the boy seemed already, as if the weight of fear had been physically lifted. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something important." They sat at the cabin's scarred wooden table. Clay explained about the custody arrangement, about going to stay with Uncle Hal in Virginia, about how things would be different now. Connor listened with the intense focus of a child, trying to understand an adult world suddenly thrust upon him. "So I'm not going back to Mom?" Connor's voice was small. "You'll see your mom. She loves you, Connor. She just made some bad choices. Adults do that sometimes. Because of Devin." "Yeah, because of him." Connor was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you going to get in trouble for hitting him?" Clay blinked. "How did you?" "Mr. Rex told me you probably would hit him. He said that's what real men do when someone hurts kids. That they protect them, even if it's hard." Connor looked up at his father with those two serious eyes. "Am I worth getting in trouble for?" Clay's throat tightened. He pulled his son close. "You're worth everything, Connor. Every sacrifice, every fight, everything. Don't ever doubt that. I'm glad you're home, Dad." "Me too, buddy. Me too." That night, after Connor had fallen asleep in one of the cabin's bunk beds, Clay sat on the porch with his assembled team. Austin, Rex, Lucas, and Johnny had been joined by 3 more veterans. Willie Dodson, a medic, Hal Hayes, an intelligence specialist, and Jeffrey Snell, a logistics expert. They'd all driven in, using vacation time or personal days, united by brotherhood and purpose. "So what's the play?" Lucas asked, cleaning his surveillance equipment. "We going soft or hard on this guy?" "Depends on what he does next," Clay said. "I've got custody, Connor's safe, and we've got evidence if Rebecca tries anything legal. But Devin's not the type to let it go. His pride is hurt. He'll retaliate." "Good." Willie cracked his knuckles. "Been too long since I had a real target." "We're not killing him," Clay said flatly. "This stays legal, or legal enough. No death, no permanent injury. But if he comes at me or my son, then we educate him on why threatening a soldier's family is the worst decision he'll ever make." Hal Hayes leaned forward. "I did some digging on Mercer. He's got connections to a guy named Raphael Leach who runs a chop shop and fencing operation out of a garage downtown. Leach uses Devin as muscle. If Mercer wants to hit back, he'll probably get Leach's crew involved." "How many in the crew?" "Maybe 8 or 9 regulars. Small-time criminals, mostly. Theft, assault, drug dealing. They think they're tough because they run this town's underworld." Hal smiled. "They have no idea what real operators look like." "Then let's show them," Rex said. Clay shook his head. "We don't start this. We prepare and wait. If Mercer comes for us, we finish it. But we don't throw the first punch. What if he goes after Connor?" Austin's voice was tight. "Or Rebecca? He won't get the chance. Lucas, I want 24/7 surveillance on Devin's apartment and Leach's garage. Jeffrey, map out every route between here and town, every approach to this cabin. Willie, Rex, you're on rotating guard duty. Nobody gets near Connor without going through us." They spent the next hour planning like they were preparing for a combat operation. Fields of fire, escape routes, communication protocols. These men had trained together, deployed together, trusted each other with their lives. Protecting one child was simple by comparison. Around midnight, Clay's phone rang. Unknown number. Bentley. "Soldier boy." Devin's voice was nasal from his broken nose. thick with rage and alcohol. You think you can come into my town, break my fucking nose, and just leave? I think I can do whatever is necessary to protect my son. And if you call this number again, I'll make sure every bar and business in town knows exactly why I hit you. How's that work out for a tough guy bouncer when everyone knows he beats up 8-year-olds? You're dead. You hear me? You and everyone helping you. Raphael's crew is coming, and when they're done. Clay hung up. Threat received and recorded, Lucas said, holding up his equipment. That's our confirmation. He's coming. Then we'll be ready. Clay stood up and looked at his brothers in arms. Men who'd crossed an ocean and given up their own peace to help him. No one gets hurt on our side. We control the field, we control the narrative, and we make sure Devin Mercer learns the kind of lesson that sticks. Everyone clear. Hurrah, they said in unison. The war was starting, and Clay Bentley intended to win it decisively. 2 days passed in tense readiness. Clay used the time to move Connor to Uncle Hal's place in Virginia, a fortified ranch house where his uncle, a retired Army colonel, welcomed his great-nephew with gruff affection and promised to keep him safe. Connor had protested leaving his father again, but Clay explained this was only temporary, just until things settled. I need to know you're safe, buddy, Clay had said. Then I can focus on making sure the bad guys never bother us again. You promise you'll come get me? I promise. Rebecca had come for a tearful goodbye, bringing Connor's favorite stuffed animal and a box of his clothes. She'd looked haggard, and Clay noticed fresh bruises on her arm, the kind left by grabbing hands. But when he asked about them, she'd just shaken her head and left quickly. Devin was getting worse. The clock was ticking. Back at the cabin, the surveillance bore fruit. Lucas tracked Devin meeting with Raphael Leach and his crew at the garage. 9 men total, all with records. They loaded into 3 vehicles and headed toward the cabin around 2 a.m. on the 3rd night. Contact in 15 minutes, Lucas reported from his perch. 3 vehicles. 9 hostiles. They're armed, saw at least 2 pistols and what looked like a baseball bat. Clay and his team were ready. They'd chosen their ground carefully. A dirt road leading to the cabin that passed through a narrow stretch between 2 hills. Jeffrey had rigged it with spike strips hidden under leaves. Rex had positioned floodlights on timers. Austin had his phone ready to call the sheriff's department at exactly the right moment. The trap was set. Devin's truck led the convoy, followed by 2 beat-up sedans. They drove fast and angry, headlights cutting through the darkness. Clay watched from concealment as they approached the kill zone. Now, he said quietly. Jeffrey triggered the spike strips. Tires exploded with rapid-fire pops. All 3 vehicles swerved violently, crashing to stops at angles across the road. Before Devin and his crew could recover, the floodlights blazed to life, blinding them. Then Clay and his team emerged from the darkness. 9 combat veterans against 9 criminals. No contest. Clay moved straight for Devin, who was stumbling out of his truck, gun in hand. But before Devin could even aim, Clay had disarmed him with a practiced move, twist, step, strike. The gun clattered to the ground. Devin swung wildly, and Clay blocked, countered, put him face down in the dirt. Around them, the rest of Devin's crew fared no better. Rex Moore had Raphael Leach pinned before the man could swing his bat. Lucas and Willie were systematically subduing 2 others. Johnny Wu had disarmed a kid who couldn't have been older than 20, holding him with one hand while the other pressed the gun's magazine release, clearing the weapon. It was over in under 60 seconds. Austin was already on the phone. Sheriff? This is Austin Greenwood out at the old Millwood cabin. We got 9 men who just attempted a home invasion. They're armed and subdued. You're going to want to send multiple units. Clay hauled Devin up by his collar. The man's nose was still swollen from their last encounter, and now his face was scraped from hitting the dirt. You came to my territory with weapons, drunk, planning to do what exactly? Clay's voice was eerily calm. Hurt me? Hurt my friends? What was your plan, Devin? I was going to kill me? That's attempted murder. Assault with a deadly weapon at minimum. You just upgraded from child abuser to felon. Devin struggled, but Clay's grip was iron. You set us up. No. You walked into a trap because you're stupid and angry and you thought being a tough guy in a small town made you dangerous. Clay leaned closer. But you're not dangerous, Devin. You're pathetic. You beat up children because you're too weak to face real men. And now you're going to prison for it. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Everyone get your story straight, Clay called out. These men came to our location armed, and with clear intent to commit violence. We subdued them using appropriate force and called law enforcement immediately. Clear, clear, his team responded. The sheriff's department arrived with 3 cars, lights painting the scene in red and blue. Sheriff John McMahon stepped out, a barrel-chested man in his 50s who'd been elected on a law and order platform. Clay Bentley? Heard you were back in town. McMahon surveyed the scene. 9 men zip-tied and sitting on the ground, 3 disabled vehicles, and 7 comm veterans standing guard. Want to tell me what happened here? Clay provided a concise report. The threats from Devin, the attempted home invasion, the fact that all of this was recorded and documented. McMahon listened, then examined the weapons his deputies were collecting. This one's got priors, a deputy said, pointing at Raphael Leach. Assault, fencing stolen property. Currently on probation. That one too, another deputy indicated one of the crew members. Wanted for skipping a court date on a drug charge. McMahon's expression hardened. And you all just happened to be out here when these fine citizens decided to pay a visit. We're veterans, sheriff. When one of our own has a child threatened, we tend to come together. Clay met his eyes steadily. Everything we did was legal defense against clear aggression. You got proof of the threats? Clay pulled out his phone and played the recording of Devin's drunken call. McMahon listened, his jaw tightening. All right, we'll sort this out at the station. You all need to come give statements. Of course. But Sheriff, Clay gestured to Devin. There's one more thing you should know about Mr. Mercer. He pulled out his phone and showed the video of Devin abusing Connor. McMahon watched it twice, and when he looked up, his expression was carved from stone. This is your boy. Yes, sir. And this happened while you were deployed? Yes, sir. McMahon handed the phone back and walked over to where Devin sat. You put your hands on a soldier's child while he was serving his country? It wasn't like that. I was just... Shut up. McMahon's voice could have cut glass. I got 3 sons in the service. 2 in the Marines, 1 in the Air Force. If someone did to my grandkids what I just saw on that video... He turned to his deputies. Book him on child abuse, assault, attempted burglary with a deadly weapon, and anything else you can make stick. And make sure the jail knows what he did. Let the other inmates sort it out. Devin's face went white. You can't. I just did. McMahon looked at Clay. You get your statements done, and you get that boy somewhere safe. And Mr. Bentley? Thank you for your service. All of you. They spent the next 4 hours at the sheriff's department, giving detailed accounts. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded threats, video documentation, 9 armed men caught in the act. The prosecutor who arrived around dawn took one look at the case and started talking about a plea deal to save the county a trial. Raphael Leach and his crew were looking at serious time. Devin, with the child abuse charges added to everything else, was looking at 10 years minimum. As Clay walked out of the station at sunrise, Austin clapped him on the shoulder. Mission accomplished. Not yet. Clay pulled out his phone. He had one more call to make. Rebecca answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. Clay? What? Devin's in custody. He's going away for a long time. You're safe now. Silence on the other end. Then, how did? He came after me with his crew. Made a lot of bad decisions. It's over, Rebecca. Oh God. She started crying. Clay, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have protected Connor. I should have. Hey. Clay's voice gentled. What's done is done. Right now, you need to focus on getting yourself right. Maybe talk to someone. Deal with why you let a man like that into your life. I don't even know anymore. I was just so lonely and angry, and he seemed... I know, but lonely isn't an excuse for putting our son in danger. You're gonna have to live with that. I will. Every day. She took a shaky breath. Can I see him? Connor, once things settle. Once I'm sure you're in a better place. He needs time to heal, Rebecca. We all do. Okay. Okay. And Clay, thank you for protecting him when I didn't. That's what fathers do. He hung up and turned to find his entire team standing behind him. 7 men who'd sacrificed time and peace to help him save his son. Drinks are on me, Clay said. Then we all need to get back to reality. Worth every minute, Rex said. The others nodded agreement. They'd come home to fight a war. And they'd won it the only way that mattered, completely, decisively, and with justice served. Devin Mercer would have a long time in prison to think about the mistake he'd made. The mistake of hurting a soldier's child. And Connor Bentley would grow up knowing that when he needed protection, 32 warriors had crossed an ocean to save him. That was the kind of lesson that shaped a boy into a man. The kind of lesson Clay would carry with him always. 6 months later, Clay Bentley stood in the backyard of his uncle's Virginia ranch, watching Connor pitch to a practice net. The kid's arm had gotten stronger, his form more confident. Uncle Hal had been working with him, and it showed. Keep that elbow up, Clay called. Rotate through the hips. Connor adjusted and threw a fastball that popped into the net with satisfying force. He turned and grinned at his father. How was that? Perfect. Clay had finished his deployment 2 months ago, taking terminal leave to process out of the Army after 12 years of service. He'd received a general discharge under honorable conditions. A compromise worked out after the incident with Devin that acknowledged his service while recognizing he'd crossed lines that made staying difficult. He'd accepted it without complaint. Some things were more important than career. His phone buzzed with a text from Harvey Russell, now retired himself. Heard you're coaching Connor's team this spring. About time you used those leadership skills on something that matters. Clay smiled and pocketed the phone. Russell had visited twice since coming home, bringing gifts for Connor and advice for Clay. The rest of the platoon had scattered back to their lives, but they stayed in touch. Brotherhood didn't end just because the mission did. Dad, Uncle Hal says we can go fishing this weekend. Connor ran over, his face flushed with excitement and health. The haunted look in his eyes had faded over months of safety and stability. He'd started therapy, they all had. Healing was a process. Fishing sounds good. Think you can outcast me? I know I can't. The back door opened, and Rebecca stepped out. She'd been visiting more regularly over the past month, slowly rebuilding her relationship with Connor under Clay's supervision. She'd completed an intensive therapy program and cut all contact with Devin and anyone associated with him. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Hey, Connor, can I talk to your dad for a minute? She asked. Connor looked at Clay, who nodded. The boy ran off to show Uncle Hal his pitching progress. Rebecca approached slowly, hands in her jacket pockets. He looks good. He is good. Finally. Because of you. She met his eyes. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for what I let happen. You don't have to make it up to me. Just be the mother Connor needs. She nodded, tears threatening. I heard Devin's appeal was denied. Yeah, he's doing 10 years minimum. Raphael Leach got 12. The rest of the crew got various sentences. Clay's voice was flat. They earned every day of it. And you? How are you handling everything? Fine. Got a job offer from a security consultant firm. Work from home. Good pay. Flexible schedule. Means I can be here for Connor. He paused. How about you? I'm going back to school. Thinking about getting my nurse practitioner license. And I'm dating someone. Someone kind. He's a teacher at Connor's school, actually. I wanted you to know before I introduced them. Clay studied her face and saw something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate clinging to someone like Devin. Good. Connor mentioned him. Said Mr. Powell helped him with his math homework. Van Powell. He's a good man, Clay. Patient. Gentle. Nothing like. You don't have to explain. Just make sure he's good to Connor. That's all I care about. He is. I promise. She wiped her eyes. Can I ask you something? Are you okay? Really? Clay considered the question. Was he okay? He'd lost his marriage, his career, and nearly lost his son. He'd crossed lines he'd sworn never to cross, had orchestrated a confrontation that could have gone horribly wrong. He'd seen the worst in people he'd once loved. But Connor was safe. The bad guys were in prison. And Clay had a future ahead of him where he could be present, could be the father his son deserved. Yeah, he said finally. I'm okay. Rebecca left an hour later after throwing pitches with Connor and promising to come back for his birthday party. Clay watched her go, feeling nothing but a distant fondness for the woman he'd once loved and a fierce determination to never let his guard down again when it came to his son's safety. That night, after Connor was in bed, Clay sat on the porch with Uncle Hal. The old colonel, weathered and wise, poured them each a glass of bourbon. "You did good, nephew," Hal said. "Not just with Devin, but with Connor. With all of it. I just did what had to be done. That's what makes it good." Hal sipped his drink. "You know what the hardest part of service is? It's not the combat or the danger. It's the choices. The moments when you have to decide between right and easy, between protocol and what's actually just, you chose right. Cost me my career. You got something better. You got your son's childhood, his safety, his future." Hal gestured toward the house where Connor slept peacefully. That boy is going to grow up knowing his father crossed an ocean, gathered an army, and moved heaven and earth to protect him. That's worth more than any rank or medal. Clay nodded, feeling the truth of it settle into his bones. His phone buzzed one last time. A group message from the platoon, a photo of all 32 men who'd come home to help him, taken during their deployment. Below it, a message from Rex Moore. "Mission accomplished. Until the next time we're needed. Hurrah." Clay smiled and raised his glass to the stars. Some wars were worth fighting. Some missions were worth any cost. And protecting a child from monsters, whether they wore enemy uniforms or lived in your own home, was the most important mission of all. He'd won. Connor was safe. Justice was served. And Clay Bentley could finally rest, knowing he'd earned his peace. The end of one war and the beginning of a better life. For him and for his son, together.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen